But as the days rolled on, speculation refused to die down. The air thickened with possibilities, some reasonable, some fantastical. A simple pause in performance doesn't usually send ripples through the global music community unless the names involved carry the weight of millions of dreams. And in this case, they did. Taehyung and Jungkook are not just performers, they're symbols. Their chemistry on stage, their brotherhood, their unspoken communication, it's the very fabric of BTS magic. So, when that rhythm fractured in real time, people didn't just see a misstep, they felt the loss of something sacred. Cameras captured every millisecond, and fans, with digital precision, dissected the footage. One frame showed Taehyung glancing to the side, expression unreadable. Another caught Jungkook, lips parted as if words had failed him. Theories exploded. Some said they had a fight before the show. Others whispered of an external shock, maybe news received backstage just before the performance. Some noticed Namjoon looking over, a furrowed brow suggesting concern, maybe even surprise. Could this have been an ambush of emotion, something neither of them expected to hit that hard? Adding to the mystery was the eerie silence from both idols in the hours that followed. No social media posts, no live streams, not even the familiar messages on Weverse that usually appear to soothe fans after turbulent moments. It was a vacuum, and in that vacuum, the imagination of millions began to spin tales both heartbreaking and hopeful. Then, a day later, Jungkook finally broke his silence, but not in the way anyone expected. No words, no video, just a single photo of the sky, painted in deep violet hues, captioned with one character, a Korean emoticon used to represent tears. It was devastating in its simplicity, yet poetic in the way it acknowledged what words couldn't. That image went viral in seconds. Fans flooded the post with comments, some expressing love, some begging for clarity, and others simply writing, "We're here." The emotional current was overwhelming. Jungkook had said everything by saying almost nothing at all. And if he was crying, if that single character represented the heavy press of emotion, then something real, deeply real, had happened. Meanwhile, media outlets scrambled for interviews, press releases, insider statements. Big Hit's official stance remained frustratingly neutral. Both artists are currently resting and prioritizing their well-being. We ask for your understanding and continued support. The ambiguity only deepened the intrigue. Was this rest a code for emotional exhaustion? Was this a strategic pause or a cry for help dressed in diplomacy? Taehyung, ever the poet of the group, returned days later with a cryptic message of his own. In his Instagram story, he posted a short black and white clip of waves crashing against rocks, followed by a line from a Rainer Maria Rilke poem. "Let everything happen to you. Beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final." Was it an apology? A message of resilience? Or was he reaching out in the only language he truly trusts, art? The fandom's reactions split into waves. Some rallied around the boys with even more affection, creating hashtags like #TakeYourTimeJK and #WeLoveYouTae. Others voiced their concern that the entertainment industry was once again devouring the very souls that brought it to life. The pressure, the perfectionism, the non-stop performing, it had already taken its toll on countless K-pop idols. Was this just another chapter in that tragic narrative? Or would BTS, known for breaking molds, find a way to rewrite the ending? In an emotional twist, an old interview clip resurfaced, one where Taehyung talked about the cost of fame. He had said, voice quiet, "There are nights when I forget who I was before all of this. And some mornings when I don't want to be seen." The words hit differently now. They weren't just metaphors anymore, they were context. Maybe even warnings. And what of Jungkook? His silence, his stillness on stage, his decision not to continue performing alone. Was that loyalty? Fear? Grief? For someone who grew up in front of cameras, trained from adolescence to never miss a beat, that kind of freeze is not just a glitch. It's an earthquake. Perhaps he couldn't go on without Taehyung by his side. Perhaps seeing someone he loved unravel in real time shattered his composure in a way he'd never experienced before. The incident has sparked a broader dialogue in South Korea and beyond. For the first time in years, K-pop journalists and insiders are talking more openly about emotional welfare. Agencies are being urged to provide deeper psychological support. Mental health, once a taboo, often dismissed in the culture of relentless achievement, is slowly finding a voice. And ironically, this change began because of a moment that wasn't supposed to happen. One idol stepping off stage. One friend unable to speak. Weeks have passed now, and the group is on a break. Taehyung has been seen in Paris, quietly attending an art exhibition. Jungkook, meanwhile, was spotted in Jeju Island, reportedly journaling and working on solo material. Still no interviews. Still no tell-all. But their distance from the spotlight is, in itself, a statement. They're choosing presence over performance, healing over hype, and perhaps that's the real takeaway. Not the moment of collapse, but the courage to recover on their own terms. To prioritize the self behind the symbol. Fans, more than ever, are standing by, not demanding, not dissecting, but simply waiting. That may be the purest kind of love this fandom has ever shown. This story will have many more chapters. But for now, one thing is clear. When Taehyung left the stage and Jungkook stood still, the world didn't lose them. It saw them. And in that vulnerable, unscripted pause, something beautiful emerged. Not perfection, but truth. And truth, even when it hurts, is what makes legends unforgettable. So, what's next? That's the question echoing across millions of hearts. But maybe, just maybe, the answer is this. It doesn't matter when they return. What matters is that they do, when they're ready, whole, and unapologetically human, because legends aren't built from seamless performances alone. They're etched into history in those imperfect, unscripted seconds when humanity outweighs choreography. And that night, when Taehyung turned his back to the crowd, not in arrogance, but in overwhelming emotion, and Jungkook stood frozen, lost in a moment the script never covered. That was the heartbeat of something far more enduring than a viral moment. But silence has a strange power in the world of sound. For a group that made its name through lyrics that speak to millions, the absence of words from Taehyung and Jungkook spoke volumes. It wasn't silence out of neglect, it was a pause for breath, a quiet rebellion against the machine that rarely allows it. And as days turned into weeks, fans began to understand that this story wasn't about a single incident. It was about the invisible weight artists carry and the cracks that form when that weight becomes too much to bear. Every now and then, a fan account would catch a glimpse, Taehyung walking along the Seine alone, sketchbook under one arm. Jungkook sitting on a dock, earbuds in, gazing out into nothing and everything all at once. These candid moments, far from the controlled glitter of music videos, struck a nerve. This wasn't staged vulnerability, it was real. And realness, when it comes from idols we've placed on pedestals, is both shattering and healing. Behind the scenes, murmurs from staff began to leak. A backup dancer reportedly shared in a now-deleted post that Taehyung was visibly shaken before the concert even began. That something had happened in the dressing room, something that wasn't rehearsed, something that left everyone unsure how to proceed. Another said Jungkook refused to speak during rehearsal, pacing silently, headphones on, eyes low. Could it be that this wasn't a singular moment, but the climax of a storm that had been brewing for weeks? And then came the photos. Not from the tabloids, but from fans who didn't invade, they observed. Jungkook at a beachside cafe, fingers resting on a guitar. A lyric sheet beside him, with smudged ink. Taehyung inside a bookstore, holding a copy of a collection of Korean poetry. Their worlds no longer looked like stages, they looked like sanctuaries. Meanwhile, fans turned the incident into a movement. Not to pressure the group to return, but to protect them while they were away. Billboards went up, not with demands, but messages of comfort. It's okay to rest, we'll wait. Digital fan letters flooded Weverse. One user wrote, "Even if you never tell us what happened, we love you the same. You don't owe us perfection. Just come back whole." The emotional maturity of the fandom became its own story. Media outlets were stunned by the sheer grace shown by ARMY, a group often mislabeled as chaotic or obsessive. This time, they proved that love for an artist doesn't come with conditions. That even in mystery, even when answers are left blank, they would stand still, hold space, and keep faith. Then, without warning, a glimmer. Big Hit announced a surprise live stream, just titled An Evening with Jungkook and Taehyung. No press.
No countdown. No teasers.
Just a moment, and when it came, it was nothing like the polished showcases fans were used to. The frame was a bit off-center. The lighting was soft and natural. The two of them were sitting on a couch, mugs in hand, no stylists in sight. Just them. Taehyung smiled faintly, eyes tired but bright. Jungkook leaned forward, hair tousled, voice lower than usual. There was a long pause before either spoke. And then, Taehyung broke the silence with a simple truth. I needed to stop pretending I was okay. The chat exploded. Hearts, crying emojis, messages in every language imaginable. But Taehyung wasn't done. I've spent so long being V that I forgot how to just be Taehyung. And that night, on stage, something just snapped. Not in anger, just in exhaustion. Jungkook nodded, eyes misty. I saw him walk off, and my body just froze. I thought, if he's not okay, how can I keep going like nothing's wrong? They didn't cry, but they didn't have to. The emotion in their voices cracked through every barrier. And what followed wasn't an explanation. It was a confession. Of pressure. Of fear. Of perfection's price. We're not leaving BTS, Jungkook said, placing a hand on Taehyung's knee. We're finding our way back to it, with more truth than before. The stream ended not with a farewell, but with a promise. We'll sing again, Taehyung said, when we feel ready. And when we do, it'll be from the heart. That live stream became the most shared BTS video in recent history. Not because it was flashy or choreographed, but because it was raw. It was human. And in a world addicted to spectacle, it reminded everyone that sometimes the most powerful performance is no performance at all. And now, as the group prepares for what may be their most important return yet, fans around the world hold their breath, not for another viral dance or award-winning anthem, but for a quiet comeback. One born not from pressure, but from peace. The question remains, not what happened that night, but what will be born from it. A new sound? A deeper bond? A quieter fame? Perhaps all three, whatever it is, one truth shines through. When Taehyung walked off that stage and Jungkook stood frozen in silence, it wasn't the it was the beginning. The beginning of what? Though, that's what continues to pulse through the hearts of fans and onlookers alike. A beginning of healing, certainly. Perhaps a beginning of a new creative phase, one unshackled from the expectations that have weighed them down for years. But even more than that, it was the beginning of a conversation the entire industry has avoided for far too long. Because what Jungkook and Taehyung exposed, unintentionally or not, is that even the brightest stars can burn out beneath the pressure of endless expectation. Even idols who have been held up as paragons of strength and consistency are still human, capable of breaking, of hurting, of needing space to breathe. It is a conversation that transcends fandom, culture, or language. It's about the way we treat our artists, the way we consume their talent without always seeing the person beneath the glitter. What happened that night on stage wasn't a mistake to be corrected. It was a message, not rehearsed, not marketed, but honest, visceral, and unforgettable. And the aftermath, as messy and unpredictable as it has been, has given rise to something far more beautiful than perfection ever could. And the days following their emotional live stream. Something shifted. Not just in BTS's universe, but in K-pop as a whole. Other idols began to speak, gently, quietly, but unmistakably. One popular soloist tweeted about her own struggles with anxiety, mentioning how she watched that moment with Taehyung and Jungkook and finally felt seen. Another veteran artist broke his silence on a decade-long battle with burnout. If they can pause, maybe we all can, he wrote. Maybe it doesn't mean failure. Maybe it means survival. Meanwhile, armies across the world mobilized not just in support, but in education. Campaigns sprang up promoting mental health awareness, especially in the hyper-demanding world of entertainment. Donations flooded into therapy funds for trainees and idols. It became more than a fan response. It became a global movement, using BTS's vulnerability as a catalyst for change. But amidst the whirlwind of dialogue, healing, and advocacy, fans remained attuned to one thing above all else: the heartbeats of two men whose silent moment changed everything. Jungkook, ever the introspective artist, began slowly sharing glimpses of his recovery through music. He uploaded short clips to SoundCloud, not full songs, just fragments. A melody hummed under breath, a lyric scribbled at 2 a.m. And every time, the world listened, holding its collective breath, savoring each second like it was a love letter. Taehyung, on the other hand, returned his roots: art, poetry, photography. He held an impromptu art exhibit in Seoul, quietly inviting local fans without any press. The pieces? Raw sketches. Some joyful, others heartbreaking. But each one carried a title that seemed to mirror the journey he was walking. The Day I Forgot to Smile, Hands That Tremble, I Am Not V. They weren't just expressions, they were reflections. They were pieces of himself that he finally had the courage to share. It became clear then that their time away wasn't a retreat. It was a resurrection, a shedding of skin, a transformation that couldn't be rushed, explained, or packaged into comeback teasers. Because for the first time, they weren't chasing charts. They weren't performing for praise. They were creating because they needed to, because their souls demanded it. And the world, once greedy for content, waited, not with impatience, but with reverence. Months passed. Seasons changed. And then, as if by design, an announcement arrived. Not with blaring sirens or flashing lights, but with the quiet dignity that had defined this entire chapter. BTS, Chapter 2, The Concert. It read, no press release, no world tour buzz, just a date, a venue, and one line that sent chills across millions of screens. For the first time, we sing not for applause, but for healing. And when that night finally arrived, it wasn't a concert. It was a reckoning. A reclamation. The lights dimmed, and before a single note played, a video montage began. Not of success, not of awards, but of silence, of backstage moments, of stillness, of Taehyung sitting quietly on a rooftop, of Jungkook writing lyrics at dawn, of them laughing, not on camera but in life. And then, finally, they stepped onto the stage, together. No longer gods, just men. Men who had loved, lost, struggled, paused, and returned. They didn't speak right away. Instead, a soft instrumental began. Taehyung's voice, low and almost trembling, carried the first lyric like a confession. Jungkook joined him moments later, not in harmony, but in echo, like two halves finding each other in sound again. The song, untitled, unreleased, was a story of falling, breaking, choosing silence, and then daring to sing again. And as they sang, they looked not into cameras, but into each other's eyes, as if reminding themselves they'd survived, as if anchoring their courage in the person who had witnessed it all. Tears flowed freely, not just from them, but from the audience, from viewers across the world, from anyone who had ever felt the weight of pretending to be okay. By the end of the performance, there was no explosion of fireworks. No encore screamed by the crowd. There was just stillness and standing ovation in silence. And in that silence, Taehyung stepped forward, eyes glistening. He didn't speak a rehearsed line. He didn't thank sponsors or chart positions. He simply said, "This time we came back as ourselves. Thank you for waiting." Jungkook added softly, "And if one day we need to pause again, just remember, silence doesn't mean we're gone. Sometimes it just means we're healing." And with that, the lights faded. Not in finality, but in peace. What happened that night when Taehyung left the stage and Jungkook went silent was not a collapse. It was a beginning of a new kind of fame, a new kind of artistry, and most importantly, a new kind of love between artists and their fans. So the question isn't what really happened anymore. The question is, how do we move forward with them? Not just as supporters of their music, but as witnesses of their truth, because the comeback already began, and this time, it's not about albums, streams, or choreography. It's about courage.